welcome to another episode of Footnotes. Today we're going to be talking to Emile DeFelice, and you probably know him from Soda City Market here in Columbia. This interview, I'm not even really sure what to call it. It's a marketing class, it's an MBA level lesson in business management, and it's a lot of things that I think a lot of people can learn from. We talk about the intersection of marketing and hospitality. We talk about failures and successes, but we also talk about the willingness to start small. Basically, it's a lot of things that I think people need to know about today that you're not hearing a lot about. Check it out. I do want to talk about the market, but I think that what I've learned in a string of conversations with you is you seem to be really good at taking a practical approach to learning stuff and then putting it into action.
Yeah.
Like marketing and understanding like retail psychology and stuff like that.
So that's the easy one, because what it really is ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody's got them. I actually had a person come to me one time and say, listen, I got so many great ideas and I'll just think of them and you go out and do them. No, bro, that's the name of the game. It's that execution part. Mm-hmm. So everybody can have an idea, but it is executing the idea, which entails a lot of the stuff you just said, or all the stuff you just said. So I think that's the first realization is to fall out of love with your idea immediately and start critiquing it and figuring out how to get it forward and how to stop it from moving backward and all those kinds of things.
Did you use that process to start Soda City?
Yes, super, super, super deliberate.
Okay.
Yeah. Not like the first iteration, All Local Farmers Market, or the previous things, my two different farm operations. So when Soda City came around, we'd already been doing stuff since 2005 to 2012, 7 years in different spots. And I wanted to rebrand it because I felt that All Local Farmers Market, even on my sign, I think, yeah, we did definitely have a sign that said, yes, we have no bananas. I was in the store one day. It's the Harry, what's this Chapin song? I was in the store buying bananas the other day. I was like, why in the world would we deny our lovely guests bananas? Like, that's the worst thing. So I don't want to call it the All Local Farmers Market. We want to focus on local food, but we should have bananas and mangoes and whatever else,
sure,
and exotic out of season stuff, because we're trying to, feed people, not be on the high road or something. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't know where I found out about Paco Underhill, but that's really the chief. He was the chief, informer of my branding and thought strategy and everything else.
So who is Paco Underhill?
Paco Underhill, if you're watching this, Paco, thank you. Is a very well-known and internationally, regarded retail consultant. He's the founder of Retail Science out of Arizona. I think it was in the late 70s, with something called the butt brush study, which involved women's clothing and how close women were to each other and how that affected sales. You fast forward to today when there's literally trillions upon trillions of data points, where you are on your phone, what the weather is, what charge you just made at Starbucks or whatever. But in those days, you either had a survey or you set up a camera or something. And anyway, so Paco Underhill ended up writing a bunch of books that are super easy to read, but all, of course, science, retail based. He was at the University of Arizona, if I recall correctly. Now he lives in New York and works for companies like Revitalize and big stuff like that. Anyway, these books are very easy to read, and you can get them, for 10, 12, 14 bucks. And you start to believe immediately, because you start to see yourself in hindsight reacting to things you didn't know you were reacting to, which is the heart of retail, right? So he goes over just so many different things, from what letters are in most major brands, to why shapes matter, to why colors matter, to why heights matter, what differences between men and women and whoever else, how are their reactions different to these kinds of things? So super, super informative. And even if you're not in business or retail or whatever, everyone is consuming something, and it would behoove anybody to read, how they're working with you.
What made you want to study and to learn that? Was it just curiosity? Was it from lessons learned from the past? Like what drew you to that?
I don't know, man. I can't say. That was so. I started researching that. Christian would come to our building. My buddy Christian Nemi from Bourbon and Black Rooster and the new one. 2011, we started working together in the mornings. Him doing his stuff and me and my stuff at 7-Eleven Whaley. And I don't know. I don't know where I got all these books. But once I read one, I read them all, and then exactly came up with the name Soda City, exactly came up with our tagline, our shape, our sort of, how do you put all these thoughts into one graphic kind of thing? And then what do we do with it from there?
So as a creator of something like Soda City, and again, we have an audience that is not just here. We've got a few people outside of Columbia that probably listen to this, but it's a market that's open on Saturdays. That's on several blocks of Main Street. But as the creator of it and the person who, you read these books about retail, you studied, you worked for years on things that led up to that. How do you describe it?
I don't want to mislead anybody. It's not any kind of stroke of genius. You have to understand the context of what was going on in my life at the time, which was ethanol. I was a hog farmer, and ethanol had pushed corn up by about 400%. And my farm, Caw Creek, had this little, stepchild, the market, and it funded the market for whatever the market needed. And as my farm collapsed under these prices, you can only hang out for a few months. If you're doing 2,500 cash a week and it turns into 10,000 cash a week, you can't do that to your pricing, right? So anyway, so it was super, super apparent that I needed something, and I needed something fast. So I had to be serious about it because, 2 small children and a life, and had to keep trucking. So I turned to the sideshow and made it the main show. And even in the beginning, it wasn't obvious. I know it seems like a super success now, and it is. 4 blocks, 180 plus vendors a week and all that. But we started on Main Street in October 2005 with 26 vendors, where we had 33 vendors at 7-Eleven Whaley Street. And these 26 were basically just subjects of my begging them to be there and begging the retailers on that one single block that we were on that we barely even half occupied.
Why were they skeptical? Why
People, they see a successful thing, and that was successful, and it would have continued to be successful, but I couldn't support the request for double the rent because I didn't have any expansion. So after my first lease came up there, then they wanted to double the rent, and I'm like, can't do that. So we'll go down to Main Street, as Mayor Benjamin had suggested, almost on a weekly basis for several years, which turned out to be what I thought was a crazy suggestion, and it got more reasonable every time he asked.
So it sounds like you had the support of the mayor at the time. Mm-hmm. Was it easy to get more of city council to support that? I mean, was there a lot of friction there?
There was a good bit of friction, but it's totally understandable. This is a new thing. Mm-hmm. The old city manager was so unused to even thinking about anything like this. He suggested, or he rather demanded, that we have a market on one block on only one half of the street, and that cars would be allowed to go on the other half of the street. And that's it's illegal in 5 different ways. But that just shows you, we're all unaccustomed to what this looked like. On that first day with 26 vendors, I had 12 staff. Wow. That is hilarious. Yes. But I didn't know what to expect either.
Right.
Now we operate it with, four staff or so, but we're, I don't know how many, 10 times bigger than that.
Sure.
And, so anyway, it was a big learning curve for everybody.
So you've gone from, Caw to all local to now it's Soda City. Started with, 26 vendors that,
mm-hmm.
You say you had to beg, which is kind of hilarious to think about now in 2022, because I think all of Columbia practically has at least visited the market once, and it's multiple blocks. But what do you think led to the success?
Well, it's a natural thing. So just like with my pork business, I didn't, invent anything. I just reintroduced something that had been taken away from folks. All right. This is what I call the Cracker Barrel phenomenon. The Cracker Barrel shows you what's been taken away. Your granny's house, all your cool stuff, you know? And so with old-fashioned pastured pork, Caw Creek, it was, who doesn't love great pork? People love every single part of the pig, so it's not even like a cow. You don't get served cow's feet, but you get served pig's feet. So just like that, market. And I've always wanted to do like a talk, like a silent talk or almost silent, where you just click through pictures throughout history of markets, paintings, in any depiction of markets around the world throughout history. But it's a natural thing for non-nomadic people to have a center of gravity, and the center of gravity is called downtown. And that was Mayor Benjamin's, long time point number one, is that for all this rest of the grow, we got to grow it from the inside out. And so that, that's why did people like it? Because it's something that they always have liked throughout human history. And they didn't have it, and now they get it back again, so they like it.
Yeah, it's like people have always liked being together outside with food and sort of dogs. Fun and interesting stuff, and dogs. And it's like those are the ingredients. So one of the things, going back to maybe the market, and I want to talk about some of the ways that you've chosen to operate it, but one thing that I think maybe people would find interesting is that you require vendors to apply to be vendors. In other words, it's not just, hey, I'm here, I'll pay you money and I get a spot, right? There's a process. Take us through the process.
Well, there's only a certain amount of spots, and that's exceeded by the people of Columbia by thousands of percents. So you gotta, that's sort of reality number one, is not everybody can be there because there's only a certain amount. Reality number two is this is sometimes what I call like a Nordstrom without a roof. We're making a store here. We're making an experience. So you can't have 4 blocks of wall-to-wall soap vendors. No one's going to come for that.
Right.
Okay. What this center of gravity downtown, town square, village square concept is not uniform. It's not some kind of giant product offering. It's a range of things, including things that don't cost any money at all, like just meeting people and talking with people and getting fresh air. So we have to have, we have certain categories that are closed right now because we just can't do it anymore and still have a reasonable semblance of, a variety of interest.
I've heard you talk about in other conversations that you care deeply about your vendors' income.
That is number one. Yeah.
Why is that number one for you?
Well, so I don't know how this came to pass, probably because doing public events has such a low bar of entry. All you have to do is like convince some people and pay $5 or whatever it is and go do an event.
Yeah.
What that completely misses when you see like a new housing development say, we're going to have a market. Well, good and well, they're trying to sell houses. So the vendor isn't the priority. So once you burn the vendor once, it's gone. That relationship is gone. So people really either underestimate or don't consider at all the amount of work, investment, and seriousness to which vendors bring to an event. So I see, like, I'm on this one hilarious Facebook group called Columbia Eats, which is full of energy. And
it's one way to put it.
And somebody will say, we want 4 food trucks for my daughter's birthday party. I'm thinking, no, that's not happening. Like, right. You don't get to have like all these people at your professional disposal just so, Junior can have a hamburger and somebody else can have a pizza. That's not happening. So you gotta understand that, like, for a 4-hour market, that's another thing I see people doing is like having 2-hour markets. Like, no, it's not gonna work. You gotta prepare for that. A lot of people drive for that. In addition to preparing for that, it always, of course, involves the day and the days before that. And then afterwards, you've got to get home, drive, undo everything, put away everything, and then start your dang weekend. Nobody does this for fun. We get to have fun, but that only comes after making money. Because if you're not making money, then you're not going to come out and have the fun either. And from a vendor's point of view. So the first line in our acceptance letter is welcome to Soda City. The second line is your income is our priority. And in another unusual twist, no other market in the country that I've ever come across or looked for has any vestige of this type of language at all. But when you build that trust with a vendor, and they're going to invest in you, and then you turn around and reinvest in them, and reinvest in the community. And so the other unusual thing about this arrangement is this is a private company running a public event. So most, if not all, other farmers markets in similar scenarios have, are like the one in Greenville. The city sets up everything, the tents, and they supply literally dozens of cops for like 2 blocks of vendors, and just on and on and on. Signage, tables, everything.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that. So we are self-supporting. So we don't have any grant monies, tax monies, public monies whatsoever. So,
I think that would surprise people. I think that, maybe your average person that goes there thinks that there's probably some kind of financial partnership between the city and the market. But what you're saying is there's zero of that. I mean, you need their permission to shut down the streets, and that's about
it. And there's a huge financial relationship, and it's one way from this way to the city and to the public. And that is because the market pays for its own police officers, and fire marshal and sanitation and all this other stuff. We don't receive any of the hospitality tax. This could easily be the largest recipient of hospitality tax ever, because there's just no numbers that compare to these numbers. We don't take any of that. And along the way, because we're building these relationships with vendors and with the brick and mortars and the building owners, everybody's making more money. As the market expands and more thousands of people come and visit, they spend money at the brick and mortars. They start to look up and they start to buy and renovate downtown apartments and other spaces. And all of a sudden we've gone from like literally hundreds of downtown residents maybe 10 years ago to many thousands now in just 10 years. And adding on to it all the time. That huge residential thing being built right next to the library will be the next chunk of residents. So then you see the value of real estate go up, rents go up, taxes go up, which benefits the government. The value of the properties goes up, everything goes up. And, and that's a good thing. So there is a financial relationship. And that is a one-way deal where we try to set the scenario for excitement about downtown. And of course it works, again, because the original principle was discussed.
Did you think that did you think about those kind of outcomes when you were starting?
No. I mean, I heard the words from Steve Benjamin, we have to grow our city. But, when Muhammad Ali was getting beat up on the playground and his bike got stolen, was he thinking about the moment he's going to be world champ? No. Right. You just got to do what you got to do and do your best. And I worked for a carpenter one time, and he had a great saying that I always use, and it's what can fail will fail. So we try to button it down. It's a public event, thousands of people. There's lots of points of failure. There's things we can control and things we can't control. Things we can control includes people's behavior or their actions. We can't control the weather. We can control our PR feed, and it goes on and on and on. So you have to identify, really in any business, every point of failure, possible failure. If it can fail, it will fail. When I was in the pork business of shipping FedExing pork up and down the East Coast, I started to gather numbers of FedEx drivers who serve my clients. So if I had a chef,
you mean like their phone numbers?
Yeah, cell phone numbers of FedEx drivers in cities and locations in which we normally deliver.
Yeah,
New York City, Washington D.C., wherever. Because that's a point of failure. And I knew all I had to do was ask somebody for the guy's phone number. And those guys are independent contractors. they're happy to help you. You know.
Interesting. So rather than even just rely on the tracking that 99% of us
Yeah,
would,
that's
you're going
great.
directly.
But if you've got $500 or $1,000 worth of product going somewhere, and somebody needs it real bad, then you find every single way to make sure that happens.
Yeah. Because probably on the other side of that, as a vendor, you know that if there were that delivery failure that you probably couldn't control, there was another vendor probably waiting in the wings that could just deliver.
Yeah.
That could get it. That restaurant wouldn't have to change the menu that night because your stuff didn't get there, even though you really had nothing to do with that point of failure.
Right.
That seems a little obsessive.
I'm a total small business junkie. I had a guy I saw on Nextdoor.com or something, .org yesterday or a few days ago. Young guy, Grayson Mullins, and he was advertising that he was going to have, he's auto detailing. And our market van is really high, and I don't like to get up there and all that. So I wanted to wax and clean and all that. Came over, it turns out I was his third customer. And he'd said a bunch of things which I found like alarming, not in a moral way, just like oh my gosh, you don't know what you're talking about kind of way. So I went back in my house. I have pictures of it on my phone because I didn't want to waste my effort, but I wrote him a business plan while he washed and waxed my car. And then I walked him through the business plan. And there's a due right now, and there's a due in 1 year, and then there's a reassess, call me back, and let's get to the next year. So 3 little sections to the business plan. So yeah, I'm totally obsessive. It's fun. It's like, the expression, what can be measured can be improved. Once you realize that you're not just just blowing in the wind, you just have to go wherever the wind's blowing, and oh my gosh, I have control over, a lot of things here, some not. But once I start to measure these and examine these and research these and find out what letter is in most major brands in the world, it's O, by the way. In case you don't want to buy the book.
You mean the letter O?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, all local, Soda City, business junkie. You wrote a business plan yesterday for someone. I mean, what do you want to do when you grow up?
I'm doing it already. No, it's fun. It's like, sometimes we have to have our enforcement moments, and nobody likes you after that, whatever. But really, this is like 90% Santa Claus. I'm just helping people make money. What's not to like about my day? And I don't have to do the little day-to-day things in our business anymore, which allows me more time to help whoever turns up at the door. Grayson Mullins is never going to be a vendor at the market. Mm-hmm. But he may never wash my car. He may I'm going to business. But I stress to him that this is a business plan, not necessarily for yours, but just a basic outline of what you need to go do right now. Mm-hmm. Become an LLC, etc. Get licensed and bonded. Have a business checking account. Connect to QuickBooks, etc.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about that, because I think you've done a lot of things that people imagine, and I'm not just sort of blowing glitter around the room, but it's taking maybe experiences that weren't so positive, trying to find something in them, learning things for yourself, because of yourself, if you will, and then saying, all right, I need a real life canvas to try to paint this on. Yeah.
So one thing some people may not realize is that as a farmer, I also was a vendor for many, many years.
Right.
And I called at the end of that whole run, I looked back on it and came up with the term that we were victims of good intentions. No one starts a market, like even if they want to advertise their restaurant or housing development or something like that, with the intention of hurting a vendor. But after vending at hundreds, if not thousands of markets and so forth, it becomes painfully clear, like what we need from you guys, what you're giving us, and what you're not giving us, market managers. And again, because there's such a low bar of entry, anybody can become one. And this is probably one of the rarer instances where a market is run by someone who's been a vendor for 2 decades. Mm-hmm. And was even a vendor at this. Was that still? Yeah. It's hard to put the timeline together, but yeah. But I was even a vendor until the Call Creek shut down at Soda City.
It's interesting that you say that, because I've seen kind of in my day job that a lot of the businesses that we work with that are very, very successful, that owner somewhere along the way was the customer. They were that person that needed that product or that service because of a former iteration.
Yeah.
And so they thought, man, if I were going to design something that I understand and can use and that's better than blank, 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 that's what I'm going to do. And when they've gone out and done that, it seems like magic, but it's actually pretty deliberate. And also something that I've picked up, not only in this conversation that we're having now, but in subsequent conversations, is you seem willing to start small with things. Have you noticed that? Or
Yeah, that's also purposeful, and it probably comes out of my experience buying and selling homes, renting them out, fixing them up like that. But I immediately came up with a rule. I've done this over 20 times, but to not do anything other than fix the very, very necessary to a house for the first full year, so that you understand how it really works. Where's the sun shining? Everything, and then start to do it. And I don't know what spurred me on to that, but it was probably losing money somehow. And so I just immediately realized that if we just inch this forward, we'll make fewer financial mistakes because we'll know more. So time is your friend in that regard. And rushing in any context doesn't, unless you're like a runner, doesn't ever seem to turn out well.
Yeah, and you've got living proof of that. As an observation, that does seem to kind of fly in the face of a lot of sort of advice and even anecdotal stuff that you hear today about you have to speed, fail fast, do these things quick. But again, you look at kind of the arc of your career and what you've done in business, and to me, it's noticeable that you're willing to start small.
Yeah.
And even to be slow, as some people would measure things like that.
Well, one of the things that affects that attitude is that I've never worked for anybody else, and I don't really know what other people are saying like these things. That's a new. Thank you for the information. And so I just do the things the way I've learned to do them, the best, and to come out with the best results. I do that. But I don't really know anything about how normal companies run. I was recently introduced to the concept of, what's that called? An offer letter. In real companies, when you offer someone a job, you give them an offer letter.
Yeah.
And it says all this stuff in there. And even the first one I wrote, I thought was so ridiculous. And then somewhere I put it, and I said, and that's not all. A new washer and dryer.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, honestly would have required me to buy that person a washer and dryer, which would also have been funny. But that didn't happen anyway. So yeah, I mean, all these things about how companies run, I have no idea. I need to make this stuff work.
Yeah, it's I guess the word I would say is it's noticeable, because again, you see a huge herd that's out there, maybe in the business community, that probably their biggest fear is to be seen as different. You know, they want to be associated with like, oh, well, you do this just like so-and-so. Okay, now I understand you. Now I can put you in a box and understand what you're doing. But I think that for people that are watching this or listening to it, there are still people that are very successful that aren't just zigging where people are zagging, but they're doing things for their own reasons. And I think that's a lesson today that people sort of need to be reminded about is, what are your reasons for doing it? It's based on your experience, based on your skills, based on expertise, whatever, but you're doing it for your own reasons.
Yeah. So that brings up, I'm also confused about what other businesses do, because I think your reasons are sometimes bizarre. I don't understand how you can name your business Kathy's Country Crafts and think you're going anywhere, or,
Okay.
Ophelia's Delights, or whatever that.
So what's wrong? So,
first of all, that's KKK. That's a terrible acronym. I mean, just no. To me, like so few people take marketing seriously or their public image seriously. So I mean, and we deal now with literally thousands of businesses, and it's just amazing what I see people coming and still doing.
So
when we get an email from a vendor, we need something this Saturday, and it's come from Danny Boy at XRYTOL178 at yahoo.com. I'm like, I don't know who you are. You haven't put your name anywhere here. So I got to go in and go copy and paste your email address, say, who are you? Like, look at other emails from you, deduce who you are. But how can you be in a business and not have your dang name in an email address? Like, what is going on?
What's your working definition of marketing? I think that's just mystifies a lot of people is what is marketing? What's your working?
Always examining your relationship with everyone else. We don't market just the public. We market to residents. We market to business owners. We market to, the brick and mortars, to city government, to Governor McMaster. I mean, we want everybody to have, a perception of us, a feeling, as something, the information about us, whatever. So it's not always about getting customer X to buy Y. That's a portion of it. Marketing involves something that is called, for us, and again, I don't see this anywhere, you attitude. Soda City you don't see it talking about itself very frequently. The one thing I guess you could construe is that we publish the market map on Thursday or Friday on social media, but we want the guests to see themselves it's them. We are set designers or producers or something like that. The story isn't about the director of the play. The story is about the actors that do the play. Mm-hmm. And part of the actors in this play are the general public and whoever's affected by this enterprise at large. So we want to communicate with everybody, which means always examining what that communication looks like. Mm-hmm. And you attitude, to go back to that super important concept, we try to instill this into emails, to individuals and wherever else. We avoid the use of the first person, singular or plural, and we always include you. Mm-hmm. People, and we have a whole, talk about obsessive, but I got a whole list of writing rules. We avoid any negative words like no or but, anything like that. Don't, stop, nothing. Nothing would be a good one to avoid. And anyway, so it goes on, but the central point of you attitude is we're talking about you, because you the reader or the viewer are not thinking about something going on over here. You're thinking about you and your Saturday, mm-hmm. or your next adopted pet, or whatever it is that we're showing.
When I listen to you describe that, it almost sounds like sort of a close cousin of hospitality.
Oh, it is hospitality, 100%. I'm in the hospitality business. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. I've always been in the hospitality business, even in the farm sector, because I'm dealing with restaurants. I'm dealing with the back of the house usually. Somewhat frequently, I was actually dealing with the front of the house because they needed to be able to talk about things. And then as the food world spun like in sort of hyper activity when it first sort of blew up, and I happened to be around doing my thing, I mean, we became the stars at the front of the house, and we were constantly trotted about the country to talk to diners and give a little Q&A and do all this. I've been on private planes and limos and all sorts of stuff. Given Mercedes for the weekend. I mean, just on and on, just an absolutely bizarre, thing to happen to a hog farmer. But but there we are, and at Blackberry or Sea Island Resort or the nice place in Bluffton, all these other places, restaurants in New York or DC. So it's all there.
That's really interesting, that the tie-in with hospitality, because I think, again, in terms of an attribute of a business, we think that that's an industry. Mm-hmm. You're in the hospitality industry.
It's an attitude. I'm born to bus. I live by these sayings, okay? I got 100 of them, 1,000.
Let them rip.
Born to bus means bus tables, but I mean, I'm just constantly scooping up, cleaning. That's my nature. I'm mad at you for leaving your dish out. I don't care. The dish is going into the dishwasher. And so I'm naturally a hospitality person. My mother was in the hospitality business. I probably learned a lot of that from her. I have a little tiny LLC for my Airbnb called Hayward Street Hospitality. Came up with a great word that illustrated something I always put in practice anyway, but when we started up Mardi Gras in 2011, I wasn't familiar with Mardi Gras as a concept at all, other than the typical imaginations. But my buddies and my best friends, Christian and Tom Hall, were very familiar with it, and so we got this thing off the ground. And the word that came out of that, one of the concepts that came out was lagniappe, Lagniappe, lagniappe. And lagniappe means always give more than is expected. So in any type of relationship, I bought a couch the other day from a guy who took a long time to make it, and he charged me an absurdly low price. It was like, this is impossible. It's just impossible. I know what material costs. I know it is impossible. So I wrote the check for far larger than what he was charging me, because he too needs a business plan, apparently. So you want, he was expecting this. I delivered that. The next time I call for something, I'm sure he's going to be happy to speak with me. And it's for the vendors as well. I've coached, hundreds and hundreds of vendors on simple things like how high your table should be. Where should you be on that table? Where should you be in your tent? All this stuff matters. And I can change the context and dynamic of a booth literally within 10 minutes. And if they'll let me, and I do, and they do, and it does. So just simple retail concepts that if I can see that you could use my help, I'll stop in the market. Now, we don't charge for this or anything, but that's the lagniappe in that relationship. So promise low, deliver high, promise high, deliver higher, however you want to look at it. Yeah. So it's an attitude, hospitality, lagniappe, I do it in my Airbnb. Some lady was all strung up about the game this weekend. Now they moved it from Saturday to Thursday, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not going to sell Thursday night anyway. At this rate, what is it, Wednesday? So I said, you know what? And she's worried about the rain, the weekend, and all this. I said, I'll just give you Thursday night. And that way you'll sort of hedge your bets. You'll get a free night, see the game. You don't have to worry about the rest of the weekend because you already got a good deal. Stay here. It rains everywhere. Rained the last time you were here, by the way. So just like, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. We look at problems over email as opportunities. Another one of my sayings, bring me a solvable problem. A child with terminal cancer? Can't. There's nothing I can do about that. So problems are really, solvable problems are an opportunity to build a stronger relationship. So if somebody comes forth with some grievance, and they very frequently do, the answer is never to, be defensive and all cap them back or something. But another great saying, get curious, not furious.
Get curious, not furious.
Just ask questions. 9 out of 10 times the person just wants to be heard. We had some guy flipping his lid a couple weeks ago about how one of our staff worded a short email. He didn't think that this word really meant this. Did that affect anything, the content? No. But he just didn't, when I got to it, I picked up the phone and called the guy. But when I got to it, that was his main issue, is that he didn't really like the way she used certain vocabulary words. And it wasn't even subjective. It had nothing to do with insulting him or not insulting, nothing to do with that. He just thought it could have been written better. I'm sure he's right.
I feel like we need to somehow turn this into a webinar where you just, give these little lessons, because while they're simple, they're not necessarily easy. They do take conscious effort and I think, like you said, an attitude and a desire to want to be that way. But I think for someone that chooses to do that, like you've done, you've seen all this good fruit, good results from doing that, But I think a lot of times people think, well, I'm taking too big of a risk to take the extra time, Or, I'm really not that curious. I want to skip to furious because I'm justified. I have a right to feel that way, if you will. And there's a lot of fuel, going on those fires these days about rights, if you will. But I think, again, you've taken it where everybody encounters situations like this, or they encounter a lot, especially if you're in business, which is about relationships and about doing things with and for other people. But I just think it's really cool how, you're living this, you're doing this. And I think that's a message that that needs to be sort of shouted from the rooftops. We need to get you some billboards or something like that. And just,
I agree. My name is Emile DeFelice, and I agree with this message. Joe Taylor actually mentioned the other day, and he mentions a lot of stuff, but that he said, I want to put you down at Midlands Tech to do a small business course. I'm like, yeah, great. Mm-hmm. So I'm up for anything. And like I said, I'm a junkie. I had a lady starting a market somewhere in Arkansas, and I'm so sorry, I know you're busy. This lady, I will talk to you about this stuff until you hang up on me. I love it. I love it. It's like 90% Santa Claus. It's just bringing, old knowledge and old mistakes to the table so you can get new knowledge and new mistakes. Another mentor of mine, Ari Weinzig from Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, actually helped kill my farm business, because he said, if you are waking up to the same problems every day and you can't do anything about it, it's time to get out. You have to wake up to new problems. And that's the moment of clarity I needed to see that I can't control commodity worldwide corn pricing. And that's my problem I wake up to every day. So therefore, I have to get out. Makes it very, very simple. And in a broader and different context with vendors, I don't want you guys making the mistakes that I already know not to make. Don't have your table at 30 inches. Have it at 42 inches. Have a place for ladies to set her purse down. Have a place that's shaded so the stroller can park there, whatever. Frame yourself in your booth. Don't get too far back in the booth. It just goes on and on. Mm-hmm. There was a book a while back, years ago now, Blink. I'm sure everyone's familiar with, and I've forgotten everything that's in it except the basic concept, which is that we make decisions that we don't even know we're making. And those are the types of things I like to adjust at a market booth, because you're either going to walk past, or you're going to stop, or you're going to take a quick look. But as you come down the road, little signals are going to tell you to go in or out, or do that or not, and without you actually being conscious of it. So that was sort of one of the big premises about Blink, and one of the things that is true when you're looking at a retail situation. We could just exaggerate it, but if you want to, put some kind of gigantic speaker right in front of your booth and blast music intolerably loud, no, you're maybe in that case it's a conscious decision, but there are reasons people are going to pay attention to something or even unconsciously ignore it, and we can tease those things out by doing some very simple things.
Thank you for sharing all this. I really actually hate cutting this off, but at some point we're either going to run out of batteries
or vape juice. Support your local vape store, everybody.
Thanks for making this fun. Thanks for making it interesting.
My pleasure.
Thanks for just doing all these things that you're doing, and for being Santa Claus. We need that.
Thank you. And for everybody else out who doesn't know, this man knows how to analyze the business and analyze our business, and I recommend him highly. It's called Pendleton Street Business Advisors. They're on Shirley Avenue. Thanks,
you, buddy. Thank you so much.